Welcome to the Coming Clean podcast with your host, Peter O. Estevez.
Hit a dash in my position, you will never last. Real talk, I had to get it from the mall. Real talk, now I'm vibing with a bankroll. Cash.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of Coming Clean podcast. This is your host, Peter Estevez, and I am very excited to be here today. I'm also excited about telling you to please go to my website, www.comingcleanpodcast.com, and subscribe for my upcoming book, From Lives to Riches, to be released this year towards the end of the year. Today, however, the reason that we are here today is because I have the honor and privilege to have as a guest Dr. John Demartini. Dr. John Demartini is a world-renowned specialist in human behavior, a researcher, an author, a global educator. He has developed a series of solutions applicable across the market sectors and age groups. His education curriculum ranges from corporate empowerment programs, financial empowerment strategies, self-development programs, relationship solutions, and social transformation programs. Dr. Demartini, thank you for being with us today and welcome.
Thank you.
You know, that is really just a very, very small portion of who you are and the things that you have done. I think I am more amazed about your transformation than the work that you do, Doctor. You know, seriously, it's amazing to see, especially in today's times where everybody is being held hostage by our current situation. And I say hostage in a very facetious way. You know, you have maintained, for the last 5 months, I see you every day on social media. I mean, you have the spirit, the heart, and the energy of a 17-year-old kid. You are all over it. Your wisdom is incredible. Your energy level is very high. How do you do that, Dr. Demartini?
You know, I just love what I do. I've been doing it 47 plus years. I've been involved in learning and sharing, researching and teaching since I was 17, 18 years old. And I'm going on 66, and I absolutely love doing it. So when you're doing something you love to do, your vitality in life is proportionate to the vividness of your vision. And I got a clear vision about what I wanted to do, and I do it every day. And I don't have to do anything but what I love doing. I've prioritized my life, strategized my life, delegated everything else. People joke about it because I tell my girlfriend, I delegate everything, even lovemaking. I tell her, I say, if I was to go and I was to get Hugh Jackman or Brad Pitt to make love with you on my behalf as a delegation, would you still love me? And she'll say, I will love you even more. So I delegate everything. I delegate everything. That was a joke. But I delegate everything to try to make sure that I fill my day with researching and writing and teaching. And that's it.
Dr. Demartini, you have an incredible story. You dropped out of high school, moved to California and then to Hawaii, and you were kind of out there lost for a long time. And you didn't have the self-confidence that you invoke today. You didn't have the self-confidence that you displayed, but you were deeply touched by a mentor. Share that story with us. Share that story for the audience.
Well, I had a learning disabled as a child. And I also had an arm and leg deformity, which made me wear braces when I was very young. And I had to wear strings and buttons in my mouth to help use my muscles in my mouth properly. I had to learn how to properly speak. And I think when I was in first grade, my teacher told my parents that I'm afraid your son's not going to be able to read. He's not going to be able to write properly. He's not going to be able to speak properly. I don't think he's going to go very far in life, amount to much. But because he's got out of those braces and he wants to run now, I'd put him into sports so he has someplace he can excel. So baseball was okay for a while, but surfing became my thing. And Texas was not the surf capital. I mean, you get a hurricane occasionally, but you don't get the surf capital. So I left. I was a street kid from 13 And then 14, I hitchhiked out to California. 15, I made my way over to Hawaii, panhandling money in the beaches of Hawaii, of California. And I lived at first, I socially climbed. I lived under a bridge. I lived in a park bench. I lived in a bathroom, abandoned car, finally a tent. And that was my dream, to ride big waves. And I did ride up to 40-foot waves. So I did do that. I grew up in the era when the little boy, Laird Hamilton was 7 years old. We stayed on the same park and the same beach there. So he was an abandoned child too.
Uh-huh.
But I surfed with all kind of interesting characters and got to make it into some surf movies and surf books and magazines and things. But I nearly died at 17, and I was led to, in recovery of that, I was led to a little class where Paul Bragg spoke. And Paul Bragg was a guy that inspired a lot of people. He inspired health enthusiasts like Jack LaLanne. He inspired Steve Jobs, even Donald Trump. There's about 139 individuals I've identified that are very famous people that were impacted by this one man. He helped initiate health food stores across America. He tried to raise the consciousness of health. Well, because I nearly died, that was important to me at the time. And he inspired me, and he was the one in one night who inspired me to believe that maybe I could overcome my learning problems and learn how to read and someday become intelligent. I didn't think I was going to ever do that. I thought I was going to make surfboards with Dick Brewer on the North Shore, and that was going to be my destiny. But this night, I met this Paul Bragg, my life changed. And that was the night I decided that I wanted to be a teacher. And here I am, 48 years almost later.
Wow. What an incredible story. And since then, your passion for metrics, your passion for doing things out of audaciously and above board, you have studied the science of ologies, 299 of them. You had traveled 150 countries. You had spoken at 250 cities. You have read over 30,000 books. How does somebody that, against all odds, succeeds all of that? What was it about you? And before I go there, Dr. Martini, I want to say something. You say you've been on movies, you were attracted to Paul Bragg, it seems to me, and that's what has fascinated me about you. You have this magnetic personality. I mean, you've been in The Secret, you've done a lot of stuff that people only dream of. What is it about you?
I think it's the relentless pursuit of fulfilling the mission I feel I'm called to do. I don't know how else to say it. I don't focus on success. I don't think about or fear failure. I just focus on my mission, which is researching, writing, traveling, and teaching. I have a 25-volume master plan set book that I've written, this is volume 1.
Wow.
And on there it says very clearly what I do. Research,
write, travel, and teach.
That's the State of My Mission book. It's one of the 25 volumes. And it's exactly how I wanted my life. I work on it every single day. I don't miss a day. I refine it, and I metric what I accomplish. I keep records of everything. I've already typed in your interview already into it. And so I basically, if you really want to do something, I find you tend to metric it to make sure that you're getting it or you're getting feedback on how to refine your actions to get it. So I'm a firm believer of documenting what I would love to create, starting with what I know and letting what I know grow, and then keeping records of the progress, because I think that helps us have gratitude, and keep refining it so you make that achievement. And my dream was to travel the world and do it. I've actually spoken in 2,030 cities now. It's 2,030.
Wow.
2,030 cities. I've been in 154 countries. We've done, how many programs? Just the one signature program I've done 1,105 times, just the breakthrough experience. So I'm just relentless in the pursuit of doing what I love doing. And I don't have anything else I'd rather be doing, so it's easy to do. I don't have a desire to do something else. That's what I love doing. So I just do it. It's that simple.
So tell us about your program. More particularly, tell us about the Demartini Method.
Well, the Demartini Method really started with kind of a ignorant hunch. When I was, well, I'm going to share a story. I think you might find this, they may find this interesting.
Absolutely.
When I came back, well, when I left Hawaii at age 18, I flew back to Los Angeles and I hitchhiked back to Texas. My parents taught me into taking a GED, high school equivalency test. I figured I got nothing to lose. What do? Take the test. If I pass it, I got my high school degree. If I don't, nothing to lose. And Paul Bragg, when I told him that I wanted to be a teacher, but I didn't know how to read, and I had a speech problem, he said, every day, say to yourself that you're a genius and you apply your wisdom. And I've never missed a day in almost 48 years of saying that one statement.
So you still do that every day?
Every day I say, I am a genius and I apply my wisdom. A genius is one who listens to their inner voice, follows their inner vision, obeys it, and sticks to priority of what inspires them. And by pursuing challenges that inspire them, they innovate, create original ideas. I've also said to myself that I create original ideas that serve humanity every day. I have many statements I've said to myself every day. So I ended up coming back with the suggestions of my parents. I took these tests. I said to myself, I'm a genius and I apply my wisdom. I closed my eyes. I couldn't read half the questions on the test. And lo and behold, I passed this test. I was really shocked because I really didn't think I was going to pass this. I couldn't even read it. My parents suggested taking a college entrance exam. What do you got to lose? I did the same thing and I passed. I really was I felt like there was something higher going on working on my behalf because I couldn't even read half the stuff. Then I tried to go to college, a summer school class. And I thought the same thing was going to happen. I thought that somehow I was connected to the universe somehow and it was just going to just keep going like that. But when I got my first summer school class, I got a 27. I needed a 72 to pass. I got a 27. Everybody else was around above 75. I was down 27. I was so humiliated and so distraught by that. I ran to my car, sunk down in the car, finally drive home, curl up in a fetal position next to a Bible stand, which is the only thing I've ever asked for my mom when she passed away, was that stand. Uh-huh. And I curled up there and I was really having a low moment and hearing my first grade teacher saying, he'll never read, he'll never write, he'll never communicate.
That came back to you.
Yeah. And I was really having a low moment. My mom came back from shopping and she said, son, what happened? What's wrong? She saw me crying. I said, Mom, I blew it. I guess I don't have what it takes after all. I was really having a low moment because I was building momentum towards this idea, learning how to overcome this problem. And then I really ran into this obstacle. And she said to me, she put her hand on my shoulder. She said what only a mother could say. Whether you become a great teacher, healer, and philosopher like you dream, whether you return to Hawaii and ride giant waves like you've done, or return to the streets and panhandle as a bum, which you've done, I just want to let you know that your father and I are going to love you no matter what you do. We just love you.
Wow.
What a statement I needed at that moment.
Wow.
When she said that, I closed my eyes. I looked up and I saw the vision that the night I saw Paul Bragg, which I have painted in my office today, big painting. And you'll have to come to my office there. It's in Williams Tower. It's in Houston.
I would love to do that sometime.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I put my hand into a fist and I said to myself, I'm going to master this thing called reading and studying and learning. I'm going to master this thing called teaching, healing, and philosophy. And I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to travel whatever distance. I'm going to pay whatever price, whatever it takes to give my service of love across this planet. I'm not going to let any human being stop me, not even myself. And I made a commitment that was to myself that there was no turning back. There was no option. This is what's going forward. I don't care what it takes. I don't care how much work it's going to take. This is what I'm going. I gave my mom a hug. I went into my room. I got a little Funk and Wagnall's dictionary because in those days you could go and if you bought $20 worth of food at Kroger's supermarket, you got a part of an encyclopedia, and this was the dictionary. I got that out and I started reading at the very beginning of it. And I started memorizing, with the help of my mom, 30 words a day, spelling, pronouncing them, using them in a sentence, and the meaning. And I memorized 30 words a day, day after day after day after day, until my vocabulary was strong enough to pass school. And I took off. When most students were kind of farting around, going to school because their parents wanted to go, I was serious about wanting to learn. And I lived at the library and I started reading every day. I started reading encyclopedias. I read 8 complete sets of encyclopedias right back after. And just months later, my mom said, son, what do you want for your birthday? It's coming up on Thanksgiving. I was born on Thanksgiving Day. What do you want for your birthday and for Christmas? And I said to her, I want the greatest teachings on the face of the earth, the greatest writings humanity's ever created by the greatest minds who ever lived. And she said, okay, you sure you don't want a t-shirt? I said, no, I want to learn, Mom. And she was inspired by that because my son, so she contacted her brother, my uncle Ralph, who's a professor at MIT and a physicist and chemist with Shell Oil Company. And as a gift, he sent 2 giant 6 by 6 by 6 foot wooden crates on a flatbed truck to our home, filled with thousands of books.
Wow.
Thousands, all kinds of books in all different fields. And I went out there with a crowbar when they put them on the ground and opened up these things and brought them in my house, in my room, and filled my room with books, literally filled the room. I had a little yoga mat in the center where I could do a sun salute in the morning. And I started reading and I didn't stop. And I just read everything I could. And one of the books that inspired me was by Paul Dirac, Nobel Prize winner, who was the one that put together particles and antiparticle theory from Einstein's equation. Now, I couldn't read this book without a dictionary and another dictionary and an encyclopedia, because every other word or every third word I had to go and look up. But it was so inspiring to be able to take a Nobel Prize winning piece and trying to decipher it word by word. It took months. But in there, he said that if you take a particle and antiparticle and put them together, you make light. And for my naivety and my state of awareness, I thought, what would happen if you put positive and negative emotions together, and could you make enlightenment? Wow. It's just a metaphor.
Wow.
So I kept that in the back of my mind. And then another book he had was Leibniz, The Discourse on Metaphysics. In the very first chapter, very first paragraph, he talked about human beings could never improve upon the magnificence of the universe. And if they were given the responsibility of trying to create a universe, they would end up creating what we've got. And it was about a perfection in the universe. And there's something about it that brought tears to my eyes. And I thought, wow, I would like to know. He said that those that understand that perfection, their lives change forever. I said, I want to be one of those individuals that understand that. And I want to be able to take the knowledge of the pairs of opposites and unify them, because Zeno and Hegel and Plato and them used the dialectic to try to synthesize pairs of opposites to have a wisdom. And so I thought, okay, I'm just going to keep building this. And so the Demartini Method started back then in a pursuit of integrated information to try to awaken the synthesis and synchronicity of all opposites found in the universe, to try to find the core essence that gave birth to everything, which we call the grand unified kind of construct. So that's where it came about. And I found out, studying psychology and brain research and physics and all kind of fields, that I started to create questions to awaken out of the unconscious information that we're overlooking in our awareness, which is causing us to emotionally react to extrinsic stimuli. Instead of being able to see both sides of it, we judge things. So in other words, if we're infatuated with somebody, we're conscious of the upsides, we're unconscious of the downsides. If we're resentful to somebody, we're conscious of the downsides, unconscious of the upsides. We love somebody, we become fully conscious of both sides. So I'm interested in, how do I initiate kind of a mystical experience of love by asking questions and awaken us out of the unconscious into fully conscious and see things as they are and not as we first initially biased our interpretation of. Well, that developed into a very profound series of questions that I'm now convinced, and I've demonstrated for 47 plus years, that nothing you can experience in your mortal body that your immortal soul, the state of unconditional love, can't love. And so I'm interested in helping people see that everything is on the way, not in the way. And there's a hidden order in their apparent chaos. And there's something to be graced over instead of something to be frustrated by. And to help people see that no matter what goes on in their life, it's all on the way. And that we have control over our perceptions, decisions, and actions to turn those experiences into something profound. And I love helping people see how to do that and share that method with people, millions of people.
Wow, that was powerful, Dr. Demartini. Now, let me ask you a question. Today, the state that we are in with C-19, the economic crisis that has impacted the world, and there's a tremendous amount of disenchantment, unhappiness, many individuals that are unmotivated, and rightfully so to a certain degree, rightfully so. How do we transmit those ideas, those beliefs? How do we initiate to unparalyze people into having such a strong mindset as you do?
Well, in my research, I have found that there's no one-sided events. It's like trying to find a magnet with one side. In Buddhism, they said that the desire for that which is unavailable and the desire to avoid that which is unavoidable is the source of human suffering. So if you strive for a positive pole of a magnet without the negative pole, you're going to be frustrated because you cut the magnet in half, you get a positive pole, a negative pole, positive pole, a negative pole. You cut it again in half, you'd still get a positive, negative pole. So setting objectives, which are neutral intentions, and expecting both sides, set realistic expectations. But if you set up a polarized fantasy about how life's supposed to be, it's supposed to have support without challenge, only positive without negative, kind without cruel, nice without mean, and expecting ourselves or any other people or any event in our life to be one-sided, we're going to set ourselves up for defeat. So I'm a firm believer in seeing both sides of events and expecting a balanced orientation. I don't react that way. I don't find Corona to be anything but actually catalyzing opportunities in my life. I don't see it as a challenge. But I can say that we have the capacity with three things: our perception, decisions, and actions, to turn whatever event's going on in our life into something that's a massive opportunity. If we compare our current reality to the way it was in the past, or the way we fantasize it's supposed to be in the future in our mind, we're not going to appreciate what's actually occurring. But the wisest thing to do is to stop and ask, okay, what's fact? What's the actual fact that I'm facing? And how can I use these facts to do something extraordinary on planet Earth today? How can I fill my day with the highest priority action that serves the greatest number of people in the most efficient, effective way with the resources I actually have in front of me today? If you ask that question and don't run a story and be a victim of history, you become a master of destiny. And you create something original from that stimulus, that experience, that catalyzes an exemplification of what's possible for other people that inspire other people. Because I frankly don't see negatives without positives or positives without negatives. I don't get caught in fantasies. I'm not interested in nightmares. I'm interested in seeing things objectively. And the facts don't give rise to these emotional outbursts. The facts give us opportunities. So I'm a firm believer that if we look, we can find all the blessings. You know, I saw thousands and thousands of comical videos come out the first month of Corona. You probably saw those too.
Yes, yes.
I saw that New Delhi, which I was at last year speaking at, that's hardly even breathable, now have clear mountain views. I've seen Los Angeles have the cleanest air in 18 years. I've seen people now do Zooms around the world and have family unions and conferences, and I've reached millions of people. I mean, literally over 400 million people since March. So I've been blessed in this situation. The market, if you have managed your money wisely and kept cash reserves, this has been a buying time that's made a fortune. So I don't see it. I think that it's not the external world that matters, it's what we do with it. And if we have foresight and anticipate both sides and mitigate the risks and have preparation and for planning, we use our time most effectively and objectively to create, with whatever we're experiencing, great opportunity. So I'm not an optimist or a pessimist. I'm a lover of life and a neutralist.
No, and I love your response because I completely concur with you. You know, there's no good and there's no bad. There just is.
Just is.
There just is. And I also realize I'm a firm believer that the universe has paused to give us an opportunity to evolve, to change, to transform, to be able to tap into our creative source, to be able to reinvent ourselves, and truthfully, to be able to go beyond what we were. I think as human beings, we have become very complacent. And you're exactly right. You listed a great number of events that have taken place since Corona-19, and probably one of the most memorable is the fact that people had truly connected, not physically. There may be physical distancing, but there is no social distancing.
No. You know what's interesting? What's interesting is with the cars reduced out there, pollution has changed, and we saw what we can do. I saw a beautiful ad for a backdoor office for a gentleman who built a backdoor out in his backyard, this 12 by 12 foot, 10-foot ceiling, magnificent office, first class, right in his backyard, completely airtight, air conditioned, soundproof. Kids could be playing in the backyard. He's right there. And he doesn't even have to drive. And he's running his company. And the transportation is reduced. The time away from kids are reduced. The distractions, the stress levels. I mean, I could make a list. I've been collecting 17,000 benefits from students around the world on Corona.
Wow.
So I don't see benefits without drawbacks or drawbacks of benefits. I've never seen one-sided events be fruitful. I always say there's two sides. If you're setting a goal and it's a fantasy and it's got one side, your intuition is going to point out the other sides with anxieties until you get it balanced, which is what strategic planning is about, to make sure you have a balanced orientation, a true objective, which means objectivity, which means neutral. So I'm a firm believer of looking for that and extracting meaning out of events. If you're infatuated, looking for the downsides is extracting the mean, the average out of it, not the excited fantasy. Like the stock market, if it's above equilibrium, if you don't see the downsides and know that you're paying high prices for the stock, you're foolish. Sure. And if you're down, if you don't see the upsides because you can buy cheap, you're foolish. But if you see only one side, you don't see, you're fooled by not seeing the unconscious. So I'm all about being fully conscious, seeing both sides, extracting meaning out of every event, and using it productively in a way of serving people with some sort of equanimity and equity that's sustainable. And by doing it, I've been blessed. And I think that there's no reason why anybody out there can't do that. But if they want to run their story and go on and about the problem, instead of being solution-oriented, well, then they are going to keep banging their head against the wall until they finally realize that's not the path that works.
Do we tune out those stories, or do we reach out and approach them to try to help them? What is our responsibility?
Well, if somebody runs the story in my seminar, I stop the story on the spot. I said, if you want to run your story and be a victim of your history, you're not going to master your destiny. You're responsible for filling your day with high priority actions that inspire you, that serve others, that are meaningful, that are fairly exchanged, and contribute if you want fulfillment in life. Running your story, blaming, dissociating, disowning parts within yourself of what you see in people around you is not going to empower you. as Schopenhauer says, we become our true self, our magnificent self, to the degree that we make everyone else ourselves. The heroes and villains on the outside are all lying inside us. When we can honor them and appreciate them and not try to get rid of any of them or be addicted to any of them, we can empower our life and appreciate the magnificence of what we've been given. At the level of the soul, nothing's missing in us. At the level of the senses, things appear to be missing in us, but nothing's really missing. We have the capacity to have fulfillment by not denying that fulfillment, by seeing things missing. So I'm a firm believer in asking the right questions, because the quality of our life is based on the quality of the questions we ask.
Dr. Demartini, we certainly live in an era, and this is going to be a way of life based on the communications that we have available to us today through Zoom and other platforms that are available to us now. And that is the space which has become a billion-dollar industry, is personal development. Okay, and in the personal development space, which is a space that you actively participate on, what is the difference between motivation and transformation?
Every human being lives moment by moment with a set of priorities or values, things that are most to least important in their life. And whatever's highest on their value list, whatever's most important, whatever's truly priority, they spontaneously are inspired from within to do it. Now, many people subordinate to the world out the outside, inject the values of others, and confuse their priorities with society's expectations. And they conform instead of going on to becoming a norm. So in the process of doing it, if they're not filling their day with the highest priority actions that inspire them, where they're intrinsically called into action doing what they love, they're going to require, when they live by others or their own lower values, external motivation to keep reminding them to get up and go. I don't need motivation to do my research and teaching. I don't need motivation. I haven't needed you. If you can find anybody that has needed to motivate me for research, writing, and traveling and teaching in the last 47 plus years, you got a free seminar. You won't find it. My daughter was asked that the other day. Have you ever seen your dad need motivation for that? She goes, no. So when you find out what you really feel is your contribution on the planet, that you really love doing, that you can't wait to get up in the morning and do, people can't wait to get that service. And that is inspired intrinsic drive, not motivation. Motivation is a symptom, never a solution for humanity. If you're having to motivate somebody, they're not engaged. They're not doing what's really spontaneously inspiring, and they're doing low priority things which depreciate. Anytime you're doing something that's low on your values, you self-depreciate and you create chaos as a reminder, hey, this is the direction, it's not you. The authentic you revolves around your highest value, not this lower value stuff. So that's why if you don't find what it is you love doing, make your vocation your vacation, doing what you love, and contributing in some way where it serves individuals, so you have a sustainable, fair exchange to earn a fantastic income doing what you love, so you can then pay for people to delegate lower priority things to those people that would love to do it. Now you create a nuclear chain reaction of people doing what they love and giving people engagement, doing what they love while you're freed. And that is all I've done in my life. That's it, nothing else. It's not that difficult. It seems like rocket science to people sometimes, but it's not. It's just basic. Prioritize what you do, contribute to the world with doing it, make an income, delegate, and release so you can get on with doing what's inspiring to you.
Did you have that same motivation when you were out on the beach panhandling or when you were surfing? Is that something that you had within you? Or is that something that you developed and harvested?
I didn't know about delegating formally where I paid for it. I think my delegation was panhandling at that time. I'll let you pay for my trip. But I knew that I wanted to go surfing at a young age. I stood up on a surfboard when I was 9, and I very first wave I ever stood up on a board, I wrote it, and I just had the ability to do it. And I knew at 13 I was going to go ride big waves, and so I figured out how to do it. And I didn't care if I slept on the streets. I didn't care if I had to hitchhike through El Paso, Texas, and get beat up by cowboys. I didn't care what. I just knew that I was going to find the beach, and I had some adventures. amazing adventures. I met amazing people, got to do amazing things along those adventures, and then got to meet some of the great surfers in the world and surf with them. And it was the pursuit. Yeah, I lived in a park bench. Yes, I lived in a car. Yes, I ran from being shot at from stealing pineapples sometimes. Yes, I had those challenges. Yes, I had to go to get saltine crackers and ketchup and find food left on tables sometimes in restaurants. But who cares? I got to go surf big waves. And that's all I cared about at the time. I wasn't interested in making tons of money yet. And so I just wanted to go and do what I wanted to do, which was surfing at the time. And I guess the delegation was freeing myself up. I gave myself permission to go after what I want. I think that's since a young age, I've done that. I don't think I learned the business savvy and the delegations and stuff until I was 27.
You slept in a park bench, but you also lived in the Trump Tower, and today you live in a ship that cruises around the world.
Yeah, there's been a little bit of change. I'm still homeless in a sense. When my wife was alive, we had 11 homes. Now I'm down to one home, the ship. I sold all those homes. I've been living in hotels or on the ship for many, many years now. The ship is the best address I've been able to find. I said when I was about 21, I said to myself, the universe is my playground, the world is my home, every country is a room in the house, every city is a platform to share my heart and soul. And so when I saw them advertise the condominium ship called the World, which is a private yacht, big one, I thought that's perfect because it advertises travel the world, never leaving home, and with amazing people. There's some really amazing people that live on that ship. There's only 100 of us that live on the ship, and it circumnavigates the world from the Antarctic to the Arctic, wherever we want to go and wherever there's water. And it's fantastic. But I met some amazing people on that journey. But it's because my lifestyle that matches. Being in one place doesn't make sense to me. Corona's been unique. I've been traveling by Zoom now, but when that lifts, then I'll be back, traveling the other ways. But that's home. The earth is home. People go, well, where do you live? I go, I live in a hotel. Many people have lived in hotels before. I have a great deal. This hotel right here, for 2 months, there was nobody here except me and 10 people working in the hotel. I had the hotel to myself. I go down the lobby, the whole thing's mine. And when they started letting people in the hotel, I asked them, so how did you get into my house? It's like, who are you? After a while, you get used to being yours. But I'm a firm believer that you got to give yourself permission to create the life you dream about. And don't try to fit it into somebody else's, unless that fits that way. I've been unique, and I didn't have a plan of being kind of, a suburban guy or whatever. Ed Tullison told me when I was 20 that never live where you can't see the farthest horizon. That's why my office is on the 52nd floor of Williams Tower. I had the 63rd floor of Q1 Tower, and I had a Trump Tower at 62nd floor. I always kept it where I never lived where I couldn't see the farthest horizon. And at sea, I can see the farthest horizon. In Mykonos, I could do it wherever I've been. And when I stay in hotels, I look out, I can see the horizon. So I've kept that as a basic premise. And I've also, got involved in space travel. So when Virgin Galactic goes up soon in 2021, it just changed it today because I was planning to do it this year. It goes up there. I've already got my journey up there. So I'm waiting to go to see the Earth from outer space because I feel at home up here. 40,000 feet feels at home, and even higher. That's good. I'm okay with that.
Incredible. I know you were asked in an interview with Vogue magazine at one time if there was anybody else that you would want to be in your life. And I know the answer. I mean, why would you want to be anybody else other than John Demartini? But who have been some of the people in your life that have impacted that you would admire today?
I learned a long time ago, to anybody that I admire, that I think that has a trait that I think I don't have, to go and look within myself and find out where I have it in my own form and my own values, because I found nothing missing in me. I went to the Oxford Dictionary and I went through 4,628 human behavioral traits, and I found out I had every one of them. I was nice and mean and kind and cruel and open and closed and honest and dishonest, and I had every trait. So there was no trait that I could see. I was ambitious. I had vision. And I mean, there's nothing I could see in others that I don't have in my own form. But if I compare myself to their form and don't have their values, I will then be like Einstein warned against. I'll be a cat trying to swim like a fish, or a fish trying to climb a tree like a cat. So I learned not to compare myself to others, but to identify whatever I did admire or despise in them inside me, wake it up, level the playing field, have equanimity, appreciate them for revealing to me the parts that I had disowned, and own them, and then not have disowned parts. Fulfillment is not having disowned parts. And so I love meeting people, but I don't have anybody I put on pedestals or pits. I don't have somebody that I go, oh, wow, they're amazing that way. I just go and look and immediately look inside myself, where do I have what I see in them? And then we end up resonating, and we end up on the same movie, or we end up in the same conference, or we end up consulting together, or meeting together, having dinner together. So I find that by leveling the playing field and owning the traits of the greats, as I call it, you open up the greatness that we all have that we've been too humble to admit we have.
How do we find that within us, Dr. Demartini? It seems to me that two things that have worked for you. You have manifested everything you desire. You seek deeply within you what you see in others, and have not identified within yourself. And you often say it in many of your talks that we all have what everybody else has. We just have not identified. Okay. How does an individual that has not topped or has had your level of awakening, this state that you are in currently, how does one reach that?
Well, that's what the method's for, really. The method asks a question: what specific trait, action or inaction, do you perceive that individual have that you admire or despise most? Something you look up on or down on? Because you're looking vertically up or looking down, looking at greater or looking at lesser, instead of looking at reflection and equal. Then I ask myself, go to a moment where and when I perceive myself displaying or demonstrating the same or similar specific trait, action, inaction as I perceive in them inside me. And I don't stop until I dig, however long it takes, until I find where I have the same behavior in my own form, in my own values to the same degree. The moment I do, I realize there's no reason to be too humble or too proud to admit what I see in them inside me. So instead of having them above me or below me and judge them, have them in my heart and realize that they're a reflection of me. And if I'm inspired by them, it's because I have that potential inside me. Now, let me go out and do what my values dictate equal to theirs. And then what I do is I find out whatever I admire, I find the downsides, whatever I despise, I find the upsides, and I neutralize it, because I'm under an illusion that there's a side that's one-sided, which isn't so. That's a moral hypocrisy that we impose on people because of our ignorance. And I make myself more fully aware. And then I do the same thing on when I've been that way. I look at the pros and cons of it, because if not, I'll be proud, which isn't me, or shamed, which isn't me. Both personas are not the real, true, authentic being. And then I'll go and find out, where does that individual have the opposite? Because I sometimes are an illusion that they're one-sided more than the other. And when I do find out where they have the opposite, that clears out the enamoring or the stammering of that individual. And then I find out whatever they're doing, who's doing the opposite at the same moment. And there's a synchronicity and a magnificent matrix in life that's humbling and awe-inspiring to realize that we're maximally growing at the border of support and challenge in these pairs of opposites. And then I'll crack any fantasies I have about how I should be like them or they should be like me. Because when I'm above them looking down, I want to make them me. When I'm below them, I want to make me them. And that's not going to work. It's futility instead of utility. So I'm a firm believer of asking, those are just 7 questions that I ask out of 80-something questions that help me neutralize any of those illusions. And I do that daily. And so I that way you are going to go through life and you get in the flow instead of, stop by these misperceptions about reality.
Where do you see the world in 3 years?
Well, I'm going to make a response that you may or may not like. I was asked in Toronto by a doctor at a conference I was speaking to, group of doctors. And at the end of the conference, there was a Q&A session. And he said, Dr. Demartini, where do you think our profession is going? And I say, well, if you're a follower, you'll ask that. If you're a leader, you'll tell me, where do you want to take it? So my mission book is where I'm taking it. And I'm taking my reality into my mission. Everybody around us will, whoever has the clearest mission, whoever has the biggest mission, whoever has the most sustainable, congruent actions is going to impact the world. And don't ever underestimate, as Margaret Mead said, a small group of people for making a difference in the world. It's the only thing that ever has made a difference. It's some individual with a clear mission and a clear vision and clear, purpose in life and a clear message for the world. Those individuals change the world. So if you don't like the direction I'm taking it, you're going to have to be clearer than me. That's all. That's how I look at it.
I love it. What projects are you working on today, Dr. Demartini?
I'm editing right now, right 2 seconds before I went on to Zoom, I'm editing a textbook I'm writing on the sun. You probably think, what is the heck is a guy doing a book on the sun? I have been blessed to write on many different things. I've written on cosmology. I've written on quantum physics. I've written on mathematics. I've written on geology, anthropology, life, physiology. I write about stuff. I'm writing a textbook. It's 800 pages, plus growing, on the sun. Because for thousands of years, for millennia, human beings have looked up to that beautiful star of ours, and they've worshiped it, they've depended on it, they've cultivated by it, they've married by it, they've learned by it, they've worshiped by it. But I'm taking it from the most ancient mystical all the way to the most up-to-date scientific thermonuclear and nuclear transmutational relationships on the sun. And the human being's journey in stellarizing and solarizing himself. We are past globalization now, and we're moving towards solarization. And with people like Elon Musk and them, they're moving us into planetary habitation. In another 1,000 years, it's hard to comprehend, but we'll be solarized. We'll be solarized. We'll be habitating, going to interstellar space, learning how to translate. They just had an article this morning on duckweed, which grows in ponds, that has certain chemicals that they can grow in water, in space, that reduces the impact of radiation about 25% more than ever before. And so we're now going to be creating duckweed growth in space to reduce radiation poisoning, so we have a longer period of travel. Every week, since I was trying to be special missions astronaut at NASA, every week I've been watching the gradual, incremental, momentum-building achievements towards expanding human consciousness and awareness into farther reaches of the frontiers of awareness in space. And I think that we're not going to stop. We're going to continue to grow, and I see that that's where I'm taking it. So that's the newest book that I'm working on the journey of man from Earth into space and the journey to the star.
How do you want the world to remember you?
A man on a mission, doing what he loves, attempting to share how people can do the same with their life. And they can do something inspiring. I believe that we live in a magnificent universe and we have the capacity to live an inspired life. And I'm just going to do whatever I can to share those two principles.
Dr. Demartini, is there any closing words for our audience?
Yeah, it's so important to give yourself permission and not ask for other people's permission to do what you love and do something extraordinary on the planet. The real you is extraordinary. The false you, the personas, the masks that we wear, trying to fit in, trying to conform, is not the real us. And the magnificence of who we really are is far greater than any fantasies will impose on us. So give yourself permission to be the authentic you and to shine, not shrink, and to dare to walk an unborrowed visionary's path, contributing something original on planet Earth that comes from your heart, that is there to serve other people. Because fulfillment will come when you extract meaning out of the experiences on the journey of doing something that's a contribution that means something to others.
Powerful. Shine, don't shrink. The incredible Dr. John Demartini with us on the Coming Clean podcast. His contact information will be available in the show notes. Dr. Demartini, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate the interview. Lovely to have another Houstonian interview.
Thanks for joining us today on another episode of the Coming Clean podcast. Make sure to join Peter and his next guest on a brand new episode as we continue changing and impacting lives across the world. Share this episode with a friend, follow, subscribe, and leave a review.
Boy, I had to get it fast. Hit a dash in my position, you